All right, everyone. My name is Obi. We're back again with a different video. I'm making a few tonight, so I just want to make sure that this is going to give you value. If this gives you value, please comment, like, subscribe, any question, any thoughts to help me to learn. Of course, let's get right into it. How to upgrade your identity. How to upgrade your identity. All right, so this is you. This is you and I, right? Let's call this person Clark, right? Great guy, right? Clark wants to become Clark 2.0. So this is Clark, and this is Clark 2.0. Sorry that Clark 2.0 doesn't look any more remarkable than Clark 1.0, but this is Clark 2.0 in the 2026, right? And what does it take for Clark to get to Clark 2.0, right? Well, a lot of things, really. The first thing is the idea is already correct, right? Because Clark has already understood, this is the first thing, the first lesson, Clark has already understood that for him to get to his destiny, he must have an upgrade in his identity. So I'm going to write that down. To get to your destiny, right? You must upgrade your identity. Super powerful thing to write down notes. To get to your destiny, you must upgrade your identity. And I don't believe that destiny is just a one-time thing. I think destiny is in milestones. So you may have a destiny for 2026, right? And the nature of destiny, different topic altogether. But for now, let's just say it's the person you're meant to be, the milestone you're meant to hit in 2026. Let's just call that destiny for now. So for Clark to reach Clark 2.0, his destiny, his identity must upgrade, right? The mistake people make is what Clark used to do, right? And Clark used to want money, right? His focus used to be on mansions, cars, right? Nothing wrong with that. But these are very materialistic things to just desire purely, right? So what does Clark do? Clark says, you know what? This is a lot. This is very confusing for my identity. This is very tricky to my identity. It's a tricky thing, right? The reason being because these tend to be byproducts of an identity. There is a value. These carry some kind of weight, some kind of value, right? And there are probably people who can articulate this better, but this is my way of understanding what they're trying to say, right? These things are very tricky to focus on, right? And they shape your identity incorrectly because there's someone you want to be that can have all of these things and they are more fulfilled, right? And this is fulfillment because these things will not get you the fulfillment you're looking for, right? But Clark says, you know what? I just want to be self-actualized. I just want to be the kind of person that attracts value. And so to do the value attraction, I've got to be attractive myself. I've got to be attractive to myself, not attractive to myself, attractive myself. And so Clark, of course, abstractly speaking, says, I need to be Clark 2.0. Clark 2.0 is my fulfilled, self-actualized, attractive self who attracts value. And value can come in different ways. It could be money, it could be cars, it could be assets, right? So Clark says, to get to this point, I need to upgrade my identity. Right? And here's what happens. Clark understands that he's got to make a to-do list, right? There are different things, right? He's got to talk to the right people. He's got to start visualizing. So he starts doing all of these methods that get him from Clark 1.0 to 1.1 to 1.2. He's doing an incremental upgrade. I've got to be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 before I get to 2.0, right? And honestly, you can assume being 2.0, but the reality is, uh, while there are stages to trying to upgrade your identity. You can just pretend to be the president. Doesn't mean you're going to be the president right away, because that identity must stand the test of time. And when it gets to friction, friction will test the integrity of your identity. Do you understand this? This makes sense to me, right? The time will come where it will prove what stuff you are made of. Are you still Clark 1.0? Right? Are you still Clark 1.0 under the hood? Or are you Clark 2.0? Or are you at least getting towards Clark 2.0? And that's what happens. Friction comes, and guess what? Clark goes back to Clark 1.0. Why? Because this is safe. This is safe. So these are the goals, right, for Clark 2.0. But Clark 1.0 is safe. It is where I am currently. Clark 2.0 is where I want to be, but Clark 1.0 is where where I am now. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me, right? It's very simple. Clark 1.0 is where I am now, and it's safe. So it is my what? It is my number one default. I don't want Clark 1.0 to be my default, but reality will test my mettle. It'll test who I am on the inside. It'll test if my default is still Clark 1.0 or if it is Clark 2.0. When I'm doing my projects, when I'm trying to be that salesperson who is in the 1%, right? The effort, the character that makes someone 1% in their chosen field must go through friction. So when they've heard the 100 no, right? And they keep going, they are entering the resilience, the property of Clark 2.0, but they might not be quite there yet, right? They might not be quite there yet. I'm saying all of this because upgrading your identity is incremental. I can go deep into this. This stuff is making so much more sense to me now. It's very clear, right? This is about the mind. This is about the stresses the mind goes to get to where it is. A lot of people just say, oh, visualize, be happy, just be grateful that you have approached. Nobody tells you about the storms. Nobody tells you about the no's, the many no's, the many failures to get to that light bulb, right? But because you're Clark 1.0 plus with the progression to a Clark 2.0, every single stage in life, every single test on your direction to the next level will, every single one of those progression towards that level will involve a upgrade. You can't just jump to this person. You won't last. You can't just jump. This is a big gulf. There's a gulf here. You must follow the path. It's good to see this, right? This is more solid. This is a vision of who you want to be and the kind of impact and influence you want to have, the kind of self-actualization, the kind of exuding of yourself that you want to see in the world, right? And maybe this is the default safe place that you have been set to be. And then it is very cool. These are tricky. A lot of people say, oh, I just want to make $1 million. Oh, I just want a mansion. Oh, I want the cars. This keeps them completely dissatisfied, keeps them negative thinking, returns them back to the default mode. The safe Clark 1.0. Oh, there's a reason why I can't have any of these because I'm different or I'm not good enough. But everything that Clark has been given to him, And with the appropriate amount of configuration, reconfiguration, renewal, you can go from Clark 1.0 to Clark 2.0. Does that make sense? Because I think it makes sense to me, right? And the tricky thing is looking at the dollars and the mansions and the cars as not the end goals, right? Because if Clark 1.0 gets to Clark 2.0 and all of these things find their way into his life, right? Or into her life, right? Then if they stop being Clark 2.0, which is kind of hard once you start operating at this level, right? And you're no longer at this default. It's very hard to downgrade. Like there would have to be some significant traumatic events to go from an iPhone 13 back to an iPhone, I don't know, 8 or to the first version of iPhone, right? There would have to be something going on, right? So this is just some thoughts, right? The real question is, so Obi, you're telling me all of these things. I kind of know all of these things, right? I've heard some of these in different versions, in different ways from different people. What can I do? Be honest. Be honest. What does Clark 2.0 look like for you, right? You can write that down. Write it down, right? Write down what Clark 2.0 looks like. What is the next iteration for you? Oh, but check this out. You know that there is a Clark 3.0. We're not even talking about 3.0 yet, or 4.0, right? This scale is infinite. We're not even going to talk about the opposite side. That side's scary. Maybe another video, right? So this is kind of abstract, right? Because it can apply to so many different people and so many different aspects, right? But I think the first place to start is to be honest. Be honest, right? Be honest about your progression. Be honest about your default. You are getting the results you're getting because of who you currently are. That is what I've learned. That is the truth, right? Regardless of money, mansions, cars, regardless of the stuff, the experiences, a lot of the encounter. Not to say that there aren't things that happen in the objective world that are out of our control, but a lot of times we bring about a lot of the things that we experience. And so we need to be honest about where it is we want to go. Once the soul has directionality, once the heart has a place to go, things will naturally fall in line to move in that direction. Because you must take steps, right? You have feet. And so before you say, hey, this is where I'm going to go, you've got to be looking in that direction. Pretty simple, right? Very obvious stuff, right? The direction I mean is begin to do the necessary readings. Begin to tell yourself regularly. Tell the mind. You've got to speak into the mind, right? Speak to the mind daily. Speak daily. Use the proper pronouns. I am this. I am this. And you have to keep telling yourself every day, right? Because you've got to convince the mind that it's moving out of this default. You've got to convince it that this is not where it needs to be. And you'll naturally start taking steps, right? Let me give you a very crazy example. It's been 3 years. I've been walking the same path at work, walking the same exact path at work. And for the first time today, this is how powerful this stuff is. For the first time in my life, I noticed a runway at an airport. And I've walked in that direction so many times in the last 3 to 4 years. I kid you not. That's the scary part. And I realized it's because I was open. I was no longer in the default, just following. I was just observing, and I just said, "Wait a minute! I've never noticed this before." Right? Why am I saying that? Let me give you another example. I was driving, very simple ideas that kind of I think help with this. Right? I was driving in there's a specific path I drive to work every day, and then one day I said, you know what? I'm just going to start observing something different. I want to find something different. This path is boring, right? And then one day I look up and I see this great building on top of this hill. And I'm like, where has that been for the last 2 years? This was prior to this one. This happened to the one about the runway happened today. This massive runway came out of nowhere today. 2 years ago, or whatever, 1.5 years ago, pandemic has kind of just like messed things up a bit in terms of timeline, but or my perception of time a bit. But I was shocked. I was like, where has this been this whole time? Your brain is just filtering out. Your mind is filtering it out. Clark 1.0 is filtering out a lot of things. Imagine, and I was thinking today, oh my goodness, that's a huge runway. That's a big, very big runway. Why haven't I noticed that before? Right? Because Clark 1.0 would just be looking at the ferns, the trees, right? The gravel paths, right? The typical things that everyone else is noticing. But Clark 2.0 said, you know what? I'm going to look around. There are things that are clearly outside of my visibility, and I'm going to see them. Hear me out. There are things you are missing out because your current version, your default version at the moment is filtering it out. Filtering out, you are filtering out experiences. You are filtering out ideas. You don't believe me? There are ideas that come to your subconscious and they get shut down right away because you think it's impossible. You think there's no way this is going to happen. You think people are going to think it sucks. Start speaking to yourself daily. Continue to remind yourself. Continue to tell the mind and continue to push it towards a new version, right? Visualize, right? This will go hand in hand with your daily speech. When you speak, you open your eyes, right? You start using your senses. And this will kind of continue to inform the version of the person you are becoming. And you may not be Clark 2.0 by the end of 2026, but you can most certainly be Clark 1.5 or 1.4 or 1.8, right? The speed towards getting there is a different story altogether, right? It's not an exact science, right? And the most important thing is to stop focusing on this, right? Stop focusing on this in becoming this. Don't let all of the idea of wealth and the material things of this life keep you from becoming the better version of you, because this is a distraction. This is tricky. This will mess up with your journey, because you might look at this and say, oh my goodness, I need to do so and so, follow somebody else's journey to get to this. But you might need to actually determine your identity, and in your identity that God has given you, there is unlimited potential to bring the kind of value that attracts all these resources. I hope this is helpful. Be honest with me. Is this helpful? Is this crazy? I think this is so useful. This is so important to me right now in my current journey. And honestly, comment your thoughts, improve on this, and then subscribe. I'm willing to learn, okay, from you guys. I want to keep it simple. There's all kinds of esoteric stuff out there, but I think this is a very simple idea, right? And it doesn't need to be super complex. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video.